Star Wars 7x7, episode 1844 today. Everything we know so far about Project Luminous, the mysterious Lucasfilm publishing initiative debuting in 2020. Let's go. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and if you had been at the Lucasfilm Publishing panel at San Diego Comic-Con and had been playing a drinking game where you would have to take a shot every time the phrase Project Luminous was mentioned, well, you probably would not have been able to walk out of that room in a straight line. And yet, for all the times that Project Luminous was mentioned, absolutely nothing was revealed about it, so I decided it was time to dig back into the archives and find out what there was, and still is, to find out about Project Luminous so far. Of course, it was initially announced at Celebration Chicago earlier this year in April, and as a follow-up to that announcement, both Cavan Scott and Charles Soule wrote blog posts on their websites to give a little bit more detail about Project Luminous. And here is basically the gist, summarizing from their two posts. At San Diego Comic-Con last year in 2018, Michael Siglain, who is the creative director of Lucasfilm Publishing, he gathered a few folks together for something that he was referring to, or at the time was referred to, as the All-Star Initiative. And basically, it was a quote-unquote bombshell that was dropped over breakfast one morning. This big idea that Michael had about, one giant story that could be told and was going to take 5 writers to tell. What happened next? In September of 2018, the 5 of them were invited to Skywalker Ranch for a writer's retreat of sorts, where they broke the story and had very intense workshops, met with the Lucasfilm editorial team, met with the Lucasfilm story group, so that means chances are folks like Matt Martin know a little something about this. But Matt has been utterly quiet about it, as have Claudia Gray and Justina Ireland and Daniel Jose Older. It's only really Cavan Scott and Charles Soule who have been saying anything publicly about this, and the occasional little hint from Michael Siglain. But yeah, basically those two gentlemen are the only folks where we're getting any big information about Project Luminous from. And there was a second meeting in March of 2019 at Skywalker Ranch, another one of these big, intense workshop situations. Charles Soule has also revealed that they are collaborating via a private chat room, which was named by Justina Ireland, but we don't know the name of the chat room. It's been given one that is a 2-word name and includes the initials of at least one of the writers. That's as much as Charles will say. And there have also been meetings on June 20th and July 18th between the authors and other as yet unknown parties. They have discussed dates for revealing more about Project Luminous, but so far they are not telling us whether any dates have been set, and if so, what dates those might be or anything like that. We do know that Charles Soule is in the midst of having a writer's shed built, and he will be working on Project Luminous in that shed. And I saw it and then failed to note it properly and can't find it, but I feel like I saw a tweet from Daniel Jose Older suggesting that he is at this moment not involved in a work in progress, but that Project Luminous is coming up, and so that he may not necessarily be actively writing Project Luminous, even though he is certainly collaborating on the story. And it is one big story. That has been confirmed, that it is one very large story being told by these 5 writers. And as far as the media in which the story will be told, well, multiple is as much as we know right now, but it is worth pointing out that the 5 writers that they've gathered for this project have experience in a wide swath of different media. So junior novels, young adult novels, junior comics, adult comics, and even audio-only dramas. And I should mention short stories as well, especially since 4 of the 5 writers in Project Luminous, Justina Ireland being the one exception, appeared in From a Certain Point of View, which is the collection of short stories that retells the story of Star Wars from 40 different side character, minor character points of view. And The work of two of the writers in that particular collection, as well as their collaborations recently, may give some insight into what might be happening with Project Luminous, as well as more details about the time they all spent at Skywalker Ranch. So we're going to explore that after the break. Stay tuned. This episode is brought to you by Constant Contact, the premier email marketing solution for small businesses and organizations. I've used their service since 2003, and over the past decade and a half, I've watched them evolve, make the product simpler, more powerful, easy to use, and do everything that they can to help train people to use the product more effectively and for it to work with other forms of marketing like social media, for example. So check out sw7x7.com/email to learn more about Constant Contact and start a free trial. Once again, that is sw7x7.com/email for a free trial. Welcome back. So the one last thing that's been reported by both Charles Soule and Cavan Scott is that on their trips to Skywalker Ranch, they watched Star Wars in September of 2018 together, and in March of 2019, they watched The Empire Strikes Back together. So this is, of course, fueling speculation that, for one thing, this may be the version of From a Certain Point of View for Empire Strikes Back, since it's the 40th anniversary next year. Another thing that's been suggested is that possibly it's going to be a history of Yoda. And while that would be rather remarkable, I don't think either of those situations is going to be accurate. And that also ignores the fact that the only other little detail that we know is the fact that the symbol for the Jedi Order appears on the official Project Luminous teaser slide that has been shown at Celebration Chicago and is now the Twitter background for Cavan Scott's profile. So there's that. It also is rather interesting that Cavan Scott wrote Time of Death for From a Certain Point of View, and Claudia Gray wrote Master and Apprentice for From a Certain Point of View. Yes, her novel and her short story have the same title. Both of those stories go into basically the Force Ghost realm. And Cavan Scott also wrote, a rather very Force philosophical, if you will, story with Dooku Jedi Lost, and Claudia Gray's novel Master and Apprentice certainly does not skimp on the Jedi and contemplating the Force. So that in itself is rather interesting, and we do know that Claudia and Cavan had conversations as they were developing Master and Apprentice and Dooku Jedi Lost, the novel Master and Apprentice. And that's more because they were playing within the same time frames and with some related characters. So that doesn't necessarily say anything about Project Luminous. It just says that this is where their energies have been focused recently, and isn't that interesting? And Charles Soule has also been delving into the deeper mysteries of the Force, although on the dark side of the Force, with his Series 2 Darth Vader comic, The Dark Lord of the Sith. And a couple last notes for you to consider. First of all, the quote that was used to introduce the panel at Celebration Chicago is the one from Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, where he says, "The Force is what gives the Jedi his power, and that it's an energy field that connects all living things." And the only use of the word luminous in the movies is Yoda's line from The Empire Strikes Back, where he says, "Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter." And so, yeah, Force Ghosts. Let's just say it. Force Ghosts, and delving deeper into the esoteric, ethereal nature of the Force. That's what I will put out there as my initial thoughts about what Project Luminous must be about to some degree. And I'll add what's left of the Jedi Order in the time period in between Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, and leave it at that. So there you have it right there. Everything that we know and a few things that we can speculate about with regard to Project Luminous. I would love to hear your ideas about it, so please chime in wherever you happen to catch this episode of the show, or if there's no comment section where you catch it, then home base for the episode at sw7x7.com. And that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for joining me, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.